serious, what are some places on Earth that remain unexplored because they are too dangerous or difficult to enter? Advocate Saint said. The tomb of Emperor Qin, the one with the famous terracotta warrior army. The mausoleum has been partially excavated, which is why we know all those soldier statues exist, but the emperor's actual resting place remains untouched. It'd be an archaeological treasure trove, being a literal underground palace. The issues of grave robbing and damage to the artifacts aside, it's likely laced with toxic mercury. Kuroke said. It's a large underground palace inside a mountain. The camera would need to be a remotely controlled robot that can move around inside in order to take pictures. I would assume piloting the robot camera without knowing what exactly is inside the tomb will damage the artifacts. Plus you cannot use flash photography because light will damage the artifacts as well, degrade the paint. So how to take pictures with no light? Also maybe the everything inside is covered in solid dirt and there's nowhere for this camera to go, and nothing for the camera to see. The whole worry about excavating the tomb is that we don't have the technology to preserve the artifacts after unearthing them. No point digging stuff out when we can't preserve it once it's outside. The terracotta warriors were painted when they were excavated, but the paint quickly disintegrated after they were exposed to air, and thus we have the brown-looking warriors now. The decision was made to stop excavating the warriors. There are many more of them left underground still, because we still don't have any method of preserving the paint after digging them out. They don't want this to happen to everything that comes out of the tomb. Kuroke said. Infrared detects surface temperature of things. It won't work if the whole area is the same temperature. Inanimate objects with no exposure to a heat source won't have any unique heat signatures, I'll assume. I don't know if infrared works underground. They could scout ahead. How to not damage any artifacts during the scouting though. Also I'm not even sure the palace is hollow. For all we know it's completely buried in dirt and you can't go anywhere without digging. Legend says the whole thing is flooded with mercury after construction to stop any potential tomb robbers. Assumption is the mercury was absorbed by the mountain over time, but I'm not sure what's actually left behind. I'm not sure what is this camera at the end of a cable? The palace is inside a literal mountain, like you can hike for hours and not get to the top of the mountain. How big does this cable have to be? Single Pin 4768 said. North Tanzania's Lake Natron looks and acts a lot like a lake of fire. The lake's high levels of natron, sodium carbonate decahydrate, make its waters corrosive to human skin and eyes, sometimes reaching a pH level of over 12. The lake also contains red-colored bacteria, resulting in its unique pink-red hues. Even if most species cannot handle the 120-degree lake, cyanobacteria have made natron their home and turned the lake its trademark reds and oranges. Surprisingly, 2.5 million lesser flamingos call Lake Natron their home. Single Pin 4768 said. North Tanzania's Lake Natron looks and acts a lot like a lake of fire. The lake's high levels of natron, sodium carbonate decahydrate, make its waters corrosive to human skin and eyes, sometimes reaching a pH level of over 12. The lake also contains red-colored bacteria, resulting in its unique pink-red hues. Even if most species cannot handle the 120-degree lake, cyanobacteria have made natron their home and turned the lake its trademark reds and oranges. Surprisingly, 2.5 million lesser flamingos call Lake Natron their home. Rosie G said. The basement of Chernobyl. It is highly radioactive due to the elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is a mass of corium. The corium is compiled of melted concrete, steel beams, nuclear fuel rods, and anything else that melted into it as it melted through the floor. It is so deadly that even now being around it for 300 seconds will cause you to die relatively quickly. Being around it for 30 seconds will cause dizziness, fatigue, and nausea. The mass was caused by the explosion of the power plant which heated the materials to form corium. Chernobyl had to be evacuated and now is rarely visited due to high levels of radiation. Kortsikwerki said. Mt. Kailash is the dwelling place of Lord Shiva, one of the holy trinity of Hinduism, according to Hindu mythology. Many people go till the base to pray to the Lord, but actually scaling the mountain is prohibited or thought of as impossible due to Lord Shiva's power which resonates in the mountain. It's fascinating to me how even now, nobody has been able to scale the mountain. Safety Guy Logic said. North Sentinel Island, with the Sentinelese tribe. Pretty sure it's now against the law for anyone to go there, for the Indian government, because the Sentinelese can be summed up by 2 points. Their arrows are rated E for everyone. Their border patrol policy is basically kill first, fuck the questions. Edit. To really drive the point home, the last person to die there was an American missionary named John Allen Chow. His body was never recovered, and there are no plans to ever do so. Bombadil 80 said. Skeleton Island in Ireland. Eerie place apparently. Story goes that it was a witch's warlock's place of worship. They would take young kids there to sacrifice them. This was 100s of years ago. No one goes there now or has done for as long as there is records. It's an island in a lake in the middle of the country. Lots of different stories, myths surround the island, but it has never been explored. I know of it because my father's father was a 7th son, a big deal in Ireland, so he would have been allowed to go to the island by the elders if he so wished. He did not. Zerativer said. Well, it's explored by the tribes living there. The area and local waters are off limits according to law, under protection by India, I believe. We obviously could actually force the issue and explore it, but nations have agreed to leave them alone. Sadly, one day I'm sure the issue will likely be forced. Drone technology will probably lead to people flying through it regardless. Apparently India flew a helicopter over the place after a really bad tsunami hit the greater region. Some tribesmen came out and shot arrows at it. Mentorpheus said. The governor mine near Acton, Ca was active from the 1800s till 1942. There were rich streaks where the gold was said to look like grains of rice in the host rock, that yielded hundreds of dollars per ton. The main shaft went down over 1,000 feet with levels branching off every 100 feet or so. By the 80s the long and active site was in disrepair, and at some point an explorer fell down the shaft into an area so unsafe, old unstable dynamite, poison gases, failing timbers and collapses, that his body was never recovered and the mine was permanently sealed. There used to be thousands of old mines, hefts and adits all over the mountains and deserts. In the last 25 years, the BLM and other agencies have been systematically sealing them off. An old silver mine in the Calico area had a solid rock hanging wall that the ore collected beneath, so when it was excavated they placed large tree trunks as timbers. Over the decades, the weight caused some of these to blow out into a bundle of splinters somewhere along the length. There were 3 rickety ladders leading to a lower level with rails and rockfall on the floor, and a stoop below ceiling. I explored this one several times before it was sealed off forever. The Masterful One said. A little late to the party, but I wanted to contribute. Snake Island in Brazil. It's named Snake Island because it is literally infested with thousands and thousands of deadly snakes. There are thought to be about 4,000 golden lanceheads on the island, one of the most venomous snakes on the planet. It has been officially made illegal to travel to the island by the Brazilian government because of how dangerous it is. Edited for accuracy. Psychological Shop 91 said. Kamchatka, Russia, closed to the public for a long time, area the size of California and has over 300 volcanoes, one that's been erupting since 1996. Tsingy de Bimaraho National Park, Madagascar, high amount of unique to the region biodiversity. Much of the area is closed to tourists. Very unique limestone formations. Mount Namuli, Mozambique, it's a mountain, but has a forest growing on top which is only accessible by climbing. Some scientists did some exploration there recently, very cool story. Cape Melville, Australia, only accessible by helicopter. Extremely isolated and difficult to access. As such it's not really been explored much except by some scientists. 3 new animals discovered there in 2013. Surtsey Island, located off the coast of Iceland. Formed between 1963 to 1967 from volcanic eruptions, only a handful of scientists have been there. Totally free from human interference, being kept that way to see how life develops naturally on newly formed land. Singlepin 4768 said. When you are done visiting deadly volcanoes, toxic deserts and remote islands, please enjoy a refreshing swim at the top of Victoria Falls, on the border of Zimbabwe and Zambia. Where the Devil's Pool will brings you to the edge of a precipice over 100 meters high above all torrential with a spectacular view. Please don't mind that the volume of water can go up in the blink of an eye and potentially lead to a fatal plunge to a watery grave. Some tourists are always lost this way, it's part of the experience. Alias said. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/de_bimaraha_national_park. Tsingy de Bimaraha. The few expeditions I've heard of, they basically trip over new species every few steps. The park is covered rocky outcrops and the name translates to where one cannot walk barefoot due to the fact that most of the rocks are razor sharp. People have stumbled and had rock spires go through their leg. Not into. Through. Slavner95 said. Mount Canoti in Northern California. It is thought that the inside of it is a hollow magma chamber. Natives claimed that they explored into the mountain and found eyeless fish and strange other things inside. It is believed that it could be the largest cavern in the world. It was closed off because it was privately owned, and those tunnels are prone to collapse because there are so many earthquakes here. The Cowboy 629 said. Skeleton Coast. Sorry if this is my second comment. I don't know if my previous one posted. It is a pretty harsh island. It has extremely harsh climate and hot high winds. The coast is scattered with remains of large animals like whales, sea turtles and such. Plus there is large amounts of gang violence from locals, such as robberies and muggings. Cheers 2315 said. Morgan Island, Aka Monkey Island SC. I've lived in this area for 30 plus years and just heard of it a couple years ago. It's illegal to go here, but also dangerous cause of the wildlife that's occupied here. So if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, https://en.m.wiki/Morgan_Island, South_Carolina. Kanashilal said. The Padmanabhaswamy Temple treasure. There's a vault that the Supreme Court of India refuses to allow anyone to open, going so far as to implement metal detectors, cameras, and 200 guards, some of which are armed, near it to prevent anyone from opening it. Estimates range wildly, with some saying the treasure can be worth as much as $1 trillion. The vault contains so many items that have been accumulated over thousands of years. Professional Party 340 said. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Canadian explorers believed that somewhere in Canada there was a city where the rivers flow with maple syrup. Their searches for this delicious treasure wasted countless lives, drove at least one man to suicide, and put another man under the executioner's axe. Uncanny Creature 0626 said. There are islands that have man-eating crocodiles and monkey with diseases that will make them really violent. You can probably find info about them online, but really no one goes there because who wants to be eaten by a croc? They are separate islands. BTW. Newt 69420 said. North Sentinel Island. Basically it's people who've been cut off from the rest of the world for their entire history, except for when the British came, which, to say the least, went badly. They kill everyone on sight and the Indian Navy patrols the island to make sure literally no one enters. They are not cavemen, they use iron from shipwrecks and pollution. They are well armed somewhat. Till3RT said. The reason so many ships sink there is because more ships pass through this area than any other area on Earth. This is likely due to the Panama Canal. Same with planes, it's a convenient place to fly over for many flight routes, so they do fly there. The additional ships sinking and planes going down over the area are supposedly directly proportional to the increased traffic. Lethal Mustache said. The flash issue is a canard. Yes, ultraviolet light can affect the colors of pigments. That said, the dose from an archaeology robot camera would be far too low to affect anything. Besides, archaeologists photograph everything using flash. You need only page through National Geographic to understand that this isn't a problem. Just don't leave priceless objects out in the sun and everything will be fine. Sleepy Conscience said. It's all about the deep ocean. We've only recently developed the tech to enter deep sea territories and there are more of those, area-wise, than all the land on Earth. Think about that. Think about all the obscure terrestrial species just discovered this century, and then think about the fact that they were 100x easier to discover than most of the stuff on the seafloor. Trabidable said. Well, the first failed because they couldn't find the correct mountain. They had an incorrect map. A few trips were stopped before being allowed due to political reasons and other trips went to other mountains that were somewhat nearby instead. It's been closed to climbing for almost 20 years, so it's not like people couldn't do it, they simply aren't allowed. Flaky Notice 7020 said, Allies mines in Barra, Ireland. Lots of mining disasters, ground very unstable. Many of the miners who survived went to Butte, Montana and Deadwood, South Dakota. My family went to Butte and Deadwood, saved their money and came home to Barra to buy our family farm. They bought it in the late 1800s when the native Irish were allowed to buy land. Most of the Allies' mines are still closed off, they are reputed to be haunted, and honestly I believe it. It's an eerie place. Hatsnatcher23 said, right after the accident you would have died relatively quickly, but it's not as dangerous anymore. From the radiation standpoint, I'm sure 40 years after a massive explosion it's dangerous as fuck structure-wise. There's a fairly famous photo of a man crouching right next to the foot. Allegedly he's still alive but banned from returning due to the limit of radiation exposure. Quartzikworky said, so the place has a long history. A bunch of people tried, but didn't succeed. There are folklores of weird happenings and people who tried to climb dying. Not sure how true that is? Sometime back the Chinese government got involved and decided to not permit anyone from scaling the mountain. So if anyone wants to climb it, they have to do illegally. Frolicking Fox said, 2 people went down to the bottom of it, but the submergible they were in was extremely thick and only had a small glass viewport. They said it was very dark, but still noticed some sea life. We have the technology to explore it. The cost is what kills these kinds of missions. Unless there is some kind of discovery or payment made for the mission, having a ship with full crew and subs to go down costs too much to justify the missions.